Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Listen and grow as Del questions the status quo, encourages you to think differently, and empowers you to make a better life. Get ready as Del challenges core beliefs, seeks the truth, and reveals the roadmap to the lifestyle you really want. And now your host, multi-millionaire, national award-winning investor, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, Del Walmsley.
Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. I'm your host, Del Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Today is Tell Del Tuesday, and the couple that I have to share their story with you today has a phenomenal story. Let's start with some numbers. 99 properties they've purchased and been involved in, and that adds up to 11,488 units. That's a lot of units. It's a lot of doors. It's a lot of apartment complexes. Currently now, they've sold off a bunch of that stuff and have 54 active deals representing 50 properties, 60 different properties, apartment complexes, with 7,767 deals. In addition to that, being that successful, they're kind enough to be ambassadors for Lifestyles Unlimited, meaning that they help other people by creating events that allow people that are interested in networking to come in and network with Lifestyles members and move their progress along. So without further ado, let's introduce Bryan and Ginny Maupin, who've been on before, but we're really happy to have you back again. Welcome, guys.
Glad to be back.
Well, let's start with your story because, you know, even though we've had you on before, the people listening to the show today, I'm sure, are new and haven't heard your story. So let's start out with your history, where you came from, and what brought you to decide to look into real estate investing and get into it at some point.
Well, Ginny and I have been married a long time, and so it's 49 years right now. But so we met back in 73 out in California, got married in 74, and went through a lot of things together. I was in the Air Force for a good part of that time and ultimately retired from the Air Force, settled here ultimately in the Dallas area in a radiology practice. And about 2012, 2013, we were looking at our situation, and it became pretty obvious that something needed to change or retirement was going to be different than what we had hoped. So in an effort to prepare for potentially moving from Sirloin to Alpo, we sold our house and downsized, and that was in 2015. And right after we had sold the house, that summer, my son came over and said he wanted to talk to us. So he began to talk to us about lifestyles. He had said he had been in it for 2 years. It worked, and he thought we might be interested. And he was right. We were interested. We went to a case study in September of 2015 and signed up right then for the preferred investor group level. And so he saved us some money, so we got the family discount. That was good. And then in January of 2016, he had his first deal as a lead, and we invested in that, and we're KPs, and that started it. From there, we just kept investing everything we could muster together to kind of grow the snowball, so to speak.
Yeah, you know what I like about that story is, as I was looking over his notes about your story here, was that how many parents spend their life savings going broke to try to get their kids to earn some money and never get anything back from the kids, you know? And in your case, in this particular case, and in particular John Boriak's family, the same way, they funded him to get going. Big payback from the kids. Let's talk about that. What kind of return did you get from funding your kid in his first deal, just out of curiosity?
Okay, well, we held that deal for just over a year, about a year and a week. We got a 147% return at sale.
Pretty good deal, huh?
Yeah, it was better than a poke with a sharp stick. There's no doubt about that. And until this last year, it was the best annualized return that we had. And last year, we had a deal that sold just after a year and returned 450%. So that was the good news. The bad news is we didn't have that much money in it. So,
well, you look at the situation, say, when you get into something like that with your child, what does that do for you as a family unit? Just out of curiosity.
Well, it could go one of two ways, right? So, but for us, yeah, our relationship was improved actually on a personal level, and as well as the interaction from a business standpoint, because we were KPs on that deal and on his second deal, and he's currently still in his third deal. But so yeah, it changed our conversations and things we talked about, and he was very, very good at trying to educate a couple of old people, so it was helpful.
That's been very helpful, indeed, having him there, explaining things to us.
Well, I jumped ahead, obviously, and let's go back and let's talk about what was it. I mean, you had a successful practice and, successful people and good people, good family. You just wonder how many people out there, are really good people doing exactly what they were told to do their whole life, but not really getting any side information in life about what the possibilities are of becoming wealthy or retired or whatever it is your goal was at the time when you looked into this. What was it that actually stimulated? Was there an aha time in your life that said, man, this is it. We got to go look at something else?
Yeah, I mean, we had looked at some other things in the past that didn't pan out necessarily. And so I was evaluating where we were with the money we had, in my retirement accounts and whatever, the other assets. And I was going, we can retire. I had military retirement. We were both going to be on Social Security. And for us, with the amount of money I paid in over the years, and Ginny worked quite a few years, we were in a decent little floor, but it was going to be a significant decrease from what I was actually making while I was working. And so we were looking for something to fill in the gap, to bridge the gap so that I might make a little less, but I wouldn't be making a whole lot less, so that we'd be able to do the things we wanted to do when I retired. And if we hadn't been able to find lifestyles and do what we've done, there's a lot of things that we wouldn't have been able to do in terms of travel, and we travel quite a bit. That's our thing. There's a lot of places we haven't seen, and we're trying to get there before the dirt falls on top of us. So
we had thought about real estate a number of times, but we didn't know how to get in and do it successfully. And when we saw this, it's like, wow, this has a track record. This teaches us how to do it. And I think that was a big part of why we decided, lifestyle, let's do this.
So which one of you two would like to pick this one up on? Explain to us what it was that really brought it all to light for you.
I've been told I'm the one that would like to pick it up, so I'll do that. But so for us, in fact, when first time we went to the 2-day, the first day Ginny couldn't come, so I did the single family day by myself, but then the two of us went on Sunday. And going into the 2-day, we were sitting there. I was 68, Ginny was 12, and we were going to have to do something to make things move quickly. So I saw possibilities with single family, and then when we got to Sunday and looked at multifamily, and we got to the issue of the sixth way to make money in apartments, i.e. the forced appreciation, I said, that's what we need to do. And the other part of it was I didn't want to retire into a job. So I tell people that we're passive and we never want to be leads. And to get any more passive than we are, you'd have to be dead, because I didn't want a job. What I wanted to do was have a way where I could grow the wealth, grow the income stream, and keep it growing. And to me, it made sense that multifamily was the best and fastest way to do that.
How did you pick your leads? And especially in the beginning, and then we'll talk about how did that progress.
Well, part of it is we actually learned from another passive too. We decided that we would actually go with a lot of aspiring leads. And of course, back when we started, we were networking all the time, and you didn't do things virtually. So we had met everybody that we decided to invest with. So you looked them in the eye, you talked to them, so you got that feeling first. Because our first thing is we have to like the person. I think it's both Bethany Oldtide said, you're going to be married to that person for a while, basically, when you're in that deal. So if you don't like them, don't get in their deal. So that was number one. So the person was first, and then the deal was second. But we decided that we really wanted to be with aspiring leads, or we did other leads also. But because they work cheap, they follow directions from the mentors, and if they do really well and you like their next deal, you're like guaranteed to be in their next deal. So that was really big for us in the beginning. And Bryan, you can add something else.
No, that's pretty much it. We stayed pretty much with that philosophy going forward. Obviously, we didn't do everything with first-time leads, but in the course of our 8 years almost, we've invested with 53 different leads, and 37 of them were first-time. So it's worked reasonably well for us.
And why do you like the first-time leads over the older leads, or do you? Is there really a balance there?
Well, there is a balance, but one of the things is when you're dealing with a first-time lead, they don't necessarily have an established track record. So there's not other people that have been in deals with them that you can talk to, right? So like Ginny was saying, so they work cheaper. It usually takes less money to get in a first-time lead deal. And I really do believe they listen to the mentors more. They haven't reached a point where they think, well, I don't need the mentor as much. I'll just check the box. They really listen. And so far that's proven to be true in virtually every case. And then once you establish that relationship, and if they do a really good job and you want to stay with them, you're pretty much guaranteed to move on. And there's been some first-time leads that we haven't been able to invest in the next deal because we didn't have money. And but I think they might take us back later if we behave ourselves.
All right. You picked your leads that way. Let's talk about diversification. What was your thoughts behind diversification, if any? Did you think you needed it? If so, how did you plan for it?
Well, our basic approach was to diversify over different lead investors, different areas. So we invested in multiple places in Texas. We're invested in Arizona, Oklahoma. We were in Kansas, we're in Indiana, Michigan, and we're trying to get to some other places more along the Atlantic seaboard. Obviously,
we're in Utah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Utah. We're concentrated mainly in Texas and then Arizona, but we're not adverse to investing in most parts of the country. Just stay away from the left coast, and the left coast is on the right. So, no California for us, even though Ginny's a native Californian.
I understand. Same thing. I've got a pretty simple approach to where I invest. Nowhere where they'll allow you to burn a building down to the ground that's a business and then not go to jail for it. That's simply an area I don't want to own a business in, right?
Yeah.
That one's pretty simple. Moving into this further then, we look at this. When you diversify like that all over the country, you told us how you pick the places. You don't go into bad places. Have you ever thought about just getting out a map and taking a pen or a dot, a pen, write down where they're all at and making a trip out of it? I've had that thought myself.
We've done some of that. I'm not taking out a map, but whatever. But I mean, we've been out to Phoenix several times, that area, and we're looking at this fall, trying to swing up through Tennessee, Kentucky, and then over to the Carolinas. We got a couple of reasons to do that. One, to kind of scout out real estate possibilities, and the other is some people we're going to do a trip with in November in North Carolina, so we need to visit with them. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. The seventh reason to own real estate, an excuse to travel. That's one. You never heard that one in a book before, right? Yet we use it all the time, right? It's now a business trip. everywhere we go, all over the United States. Got to go see my property that I've never seen even before I bought it. So now I got to see it. All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with Bryan and Ginny Maupin in the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
Teaching you with a roadmap to creating the lifestyle you really want. Keep listening. The Del Walmsley Radio Show returns in moments.
So when I say be ready, number one, to get ready, you better join up Lifestyles Unlimited and learn all these things we're talking about. You're out there piddling and, internet information and your buddy's information or your dad's information. It's not going to get you the results that we're talking about. You're going to have to be educated in what we're doing.
Learn from the people that are already where you want to be. Join us for the free online workshop at lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
You're hearing the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Want more life-changing knowledge? Access our podcast and listen on demand at lifestylesunlimited.com under the radio tab. Now your host, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del Tuesday is Bryan and Ginny Maupin. And when we come back here, what I'd like to talk about now is the size of each investment and the timing. So as you get into this, you've done so many different deals. You have to have, I would think, a sense of how big a bite you're willing to put into each deal, what timing there is between each of these. I know myself, that is my job as an investor anymore. I have the family office concept where I have to decide, okay, how much money am I going to move from this end of the stick to that end of the stick? And how quickly and how often do I think I need to move these things? But let's just start with when you're starting into it and you've got a chunk of money to work with in the beginning. What was your chunk size of investments and how often realistically did you want to do another deal? Can we share that?
So in our first year, we got into 10. And then we slowed down the next year, dropped down to 6. And then we've been back and forth. We've averaged over 10 a year. And last year we got a little over enthusiastic potentially. We ended up in 25 deals, 30 properties last year.
Wow.
We had like 14 deals sell in 2021. And so when you take all of that money and it comes back to you with the capital gains, you got to do something with it. And then we had 11 sell during 2022. So we had 25 in 2 years that sold. So basically in 22, we replaced that. So
wow.
It doesn't look so bad when you think about it that way.
Bryan, this kind of a story that you're sharing right here is so big that the average person starting would never even conceive it. They can't conceive it, let alone believe it. So let's start with the statement you made as some money came about. How does money come about piece by piece to someone like yourself and your family?
Well, we started off with the fact that we had sold our McMansion and moved down to a smaller home. And so we had made a decent gain on the home that we sold. And then my financial guy said, you're self-insured now. You really don't need that life insurance policy. And the life insurance policy was about to give a hell of a lot more money. So I took the cash out of that, and those two things gave us our pot to start with, which was over $500,000, and then we just went from there. And then I had money in retirement accounts, and as opportunities came up, I could pull that money. I had no penalty. I just, obviously had to pay the taxes. And so over time we did that, and then the deal started turning over. After about 2 years, the deal started turning over, and so the money just started coming in from that.
Now I want to go back to the same area you're talking about here for a minute before they started turning over. because it's easy to see where you go from that. I mean, that just makes sense, but we'll do it.
Right.
I want to talk about how quickly did it become obvious to you that this stuff worked, to where you're looking for more money, you're scraping for money. Man, we got to get the money out of that. We got that retirement account sitting over there earning like 1.5% or 4% a year or whatever, and this, our son just earned us 100%.
Right.
There's got to be a moment where it clicks and you go, wow, everywhere I've got something that's earning a small amount of money, I got to get it out of there and get it over here. When did that happen?
Well, I mean, the proof in the pudding was at the end of the first year when the first deal sold. I mean, that made it absolutely clear. But I think we were convinced only maybe after 3 or 4 months that we were on the right track. We just had to make sure that we stayed with the plan and were aggressive about reinvesting anything that came in. And also, we just kept looking at deals. And if we saw one we liked, like I said, we'd touch the retirement account money and I could pull that out. And I also stopped contributing to any of those things. So that freed up at the time over, I was contributing to a SEP, and I was putting over $50,000 a year into that. I just stopped doing that and used that money to invest also.
Well, I think part of it, too, is when you're around the other lifestyle members, you're around people who it's already worked for. So that gives you a huge belief right there. And that's one reason why we really like giving back as ambassadors, too, so that people can see what we have done and we can help them. Because it just makes you really believe when you see person after person after person after person, and it works for them.
Absolutely. Well, I've got written down here, size of investment, timing of investment, pace of the timing of the investment. The last one is renewal. What happens when they start selling? What goes on in your mind? Like, oh my gosh, a whole nother problem to take care of.
Well, it's not a problem.
It's a good problem to have. But so
rich people problems, I call them. I call them rich people problems.
Until I retired in October of 2019, I didn't need any of the money that we were getting out of the real estate. So we put everything back, distributions, capital gains, refis in the original, seed corn, to quote John Pry. Every dime of it went back in, plus any new money we could conjure up, we were investing that. After 2019, of course, COVID hit. Well, we weren't going anywhere, so we kept doing it the same way, just kept reinvesting everything that came in. Now we're starting to use the distributions and, in some cases, take a portion of the capital gains to kind of fund the travel that we do. And but, I mean, that's what, drove it for us was, but I think it's important in the beginning, if you're able to not touch anything, if you're still working, don't touch anything. You just keep pounding it back in there so you can grow the pot.
And let's talk about that. As you pound it back in there, as you call it, as you reinvest it, you start to get exponential growth, I would assume. That's what happens to most people. Did you find that to be true?
Yeah. Using net worth as a measure, it was going up year over year. So, and then, like I said, when we, last year we kind of, in 21 and 22, we had so many sell. So 22 ended up being a big year for acquisitions just because there was so much money coming in. And we weren't going to spend it all. We wanted to get to a kind of a critical mass and then be able to enjoy what we built.
Why did you become an ambassador? What do ambassadors do, and why did you decide to become one?
So obviously we were happy to do that. And we had been helped all along the way by so many members that we wanted to see if we could go out and help other members to become financially free. So I said we were just really excited to be able to step into that role, and we thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's just a way of giving back.
Well, what do you do? Do you set up meetings?
After COVID hit, you had to go more virtual, so some things were set up virtually from Dallas. And now we have set up a monthly meetup outside of the going to the Lifestyles office, which has been wonderful because we actually have a meetup at another preferred investor group. I mean, another investor in Lifestyles. So that's what we do. We set things up.
So what do people think about these meetings? What do they get out of them?
Well, I think you really need to be able to talk to somebody who doesn't. I have nothing to sell you at all. Whether you get in or don't get in, it's up to you. It doesn't make any. It will never put a dime in my pocket. I will never be a lead. I have nothing financially how I can get out of it. So I am just there just to help you and to just show that yes, it does work.
Do people bring non-members to these events?
Yes. Our monthly meetup is open to all levels of membership and guests, which we really like that because sometimes you just need to be around some people to say, well, does this really work?
Do you have an ambassador email address by chance?
Well, yes. It's on the portal that all ambassadors have an email where you can reach out to them. So, but you have to be... I assume you have to be some type of member in order to get on the portal and have that access. But yes, all the ambassadors are listed there with their email address.
I got you. All right, so I guess that's supposed to be kept just to members, but you still do. I guess it has to be a referral then to get into one of these meetings, huh?
Well, you know what? No. Now, unfortunately, we are not Facebook people, but we do have a couple of members who are. So they actually put it out on Facebook as well. So other people can see that. I don't know how all that works because, again, I don't do Facebook.
Yeah, I noticed that. I tried to look you guys up. I always look people up on Facebook before I talk to them just to see what they're into. And you stifled me.
Oh, really?
Nothing there.
Yeah.
It's part of the conditions of the witness protection program that we can't be on Facebook. So
I hear you. I probably violated mine somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Little too much exposure, Mr. Walmsley. All right, so we can't give them out the address or email address or anything. I guess what they do is if they want to get in touch with you guys, is just contact me at AskDel. That's ASKDEL, 1L, not the computer. ASKDEL, AskDel at LUINC.com. That's LU, like Lifestyles Unlimited, Inc., INC.com. And if you want to, just email me, and I'll put you in touch with somebody who can get you in touch with these people. If you're that interested in some type of a personal touch meetup type thing, we can make that happen. Let's talk now. We've only got about a minute and a half left. What's the future look like for you guys? What's your plans for the future?
Well,
Travel.
yeah, just keep doing what we've been doing. We've got with the 60 plus active properties, we've got a nice base, and anything that sells we'll replace. If a good deal comes along, we'll add to that number. But the dynamics of how these things turn over, we'll probably have 3 or 4 or more sell this year, and we'll replace those. We've already done 3 deals this year, so I figure we'll probably end up somewhere between 10 and 12 this year. But if money is there and opportunity presents, then we're not adverse to deploying it. You talked about the family office. We try not to have money that we want to deploy laying around more than 30 days if we can help it.
Well, nowadays with interest rates being as high as 4% in my savings accounts, I'm not all that upset about leaving it sit there while I wait for that next great deal. It was a bit of a pain back when it was 0.03.
Yes.
It's like 0.3%. That was really a pain. You did have to get that money moved very quickly. But I'm kind of holding myself a little bit to that great. I think there's going to be some incredible deals come up in the next couple 6 months to a year. I think there's going to be some great, super great opportunities to get back to that 100% return type stuff that you ran into on your first deal. So that's what I'm hanging on to. Well, guys, I really want to thank you, first of all, for being ambassadors. Second of all, for being on the show today and sharing your story. And the rest of you out there, remember this. It's not the money. It's the lifestyle. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.
The information and opinions you hear on the Del Walmsley Radio Show are those of the host, Del Walmsley, his guests, and his callers. The Del Walmsley Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Del Walmsley Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.